An alien civilization, as a punishment for dangerous criminals, sealed these prisoners inside human hosts. Unknowingly, humans became living prisons for these criminals. On a normal day, the prisoners coexisted with their hosts, lying dormant deep within their consciousness. But if the host's emotions got out of control or the seal weakened, the prisoners could temporarily break free. This act was known among them as a prison break. One day, the prisoner inside a young girl completely lost control, and demon hunters pursued her, mistaking her for a monster. Although the hunters were numerous, they were no match for the creature. In the critical moment, the sky suddenly split, and a modern car sped through. The alien administrator had finally arrived to retrieve the escaped prisoner from her body. Using advanced alien technology, the administrator forcibly subdued the creature and drove it back into the woman's body. Yet the prisoner did not fully submit and launched a sudden attack on the administrator using the woman's body. Realizing something was wrong, the administrator extracted the prisoner to seal it again. At that moment, his partner, Thunder, suddenly heard a baby crying nearby. The child's mother was the very woman who had just been used to seal the prisoner. But the Guardian stated that the life and death of humans were beyond their interference. The mission was complete, and they had to leave this era immediately. Since the prisoners were sealed across different points in time, the Guardian and Thunder were assigned to oversee them. After the Guardian resealed the prisoner, the baby's cries rang out once more. Thunder secretly brought back the motherless baby. Seeing the Guardian's anger, Thunder explained that it would help them better understand humans. Reluctantly, the Guardian agreed to keep the baby, and from that moment their lives changed dramatically. Time passed, and the grown-up Jiyan kept causing trouble for the Guardian. She repeatedly told her teachers that her father was like a humanoid robot, and that they even had a talking car at home. But every video she recorded was deleted by Thunder, and no one believed her. After the discussion, the Guardian expressionlessly picked up Jiyan and took her home. Although he denied all of Jiyan's suspicions, she remained undeterred. She secretly hid her phone in the car, planning to eavesdrop on a conversation between her father and Thunder. Unexpectedly, she learned that the ship transporting the prisoners would arrive on Earth in 18 hours. Jiyan didn't understand what this meant, so she secretly went to ask the talking car. Unfortunately, Thunder ignored her, so Jiyan retrieved her phone first. She accidentally opened the temporary prison, holding the prisoners. Seeing that she was about to release the prisoners, Thunder appeared to stop her. He then transformed into the Guardian's form and began talking with Jiyan. It was clear that he truly cared for Jiyan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought her back. During the conversation, Thunder accidentally revealed the location of the prisoners. As the system alarm blared, he realized he had made a serious mistake. He quickly reverted to his robot form and drove Jiyan away. When the Guardian arrived to ask, he simply claimed it was a system malfunction. However, Jiyan paid no heed to Thunder's warning. The next day, she went to Zishan Hospital, determined to document everything about to happen. At that moment, a strange cloud formation suddenly appeared in the sky. As the ship and the clouds kept changing shape, a peculiar stone fell into the hospital corridor. In the next moment, the stone began to swell rapidly, and in an instant, it transformed into a massive golden cocoon. Passing female doctor couldn't help but walk toward the giant cocoon. Just as she was about to touch the cocoon, it suddenly revealed a dazzling, multicolored core. The doctor's expression instantly turned to sheer terror, but it was too late for her to run. A tentacle slowly aimed at her and mercilessly pierced her body. The remaining people in the hospital couldn't escape the tentacle's pursuit either. No matter where they hid, the tentacle could track them with deadly precision. Jaeyan was shocked by the scene and could only dodge desperately. A man, just waking up, witnessed the horrifying sight, but before he could react, the next moment, some substance invaded his brain, and he lost consciousness. Fortunately, since the number of prisoners had already been set, Jiyan narrowly survived. At that moment, footsteps echoed as the Guardian slowly appeared in the hospital. Afraid of being scolded by the Guardian, Jiyan hurriedly left the hospital. Meanwhile, the tentacles that had released the prisoners slowly retracted. Everyone returned to normal, as if nothing had ever happened. Realizing she had caused trouble, Jiyan went to a classmate's house with her phone. Planning to hide there, she also showed her classmate the video she had recorded at the hospital earlier. By then, the Guardian and Thunder had finished handling the hospital matters and arrived. Using his charm to distract her, Thunder successfully got Jiyan back home. Knowing they could no longer hide their identities, they had no choice but to tell Jiyan everything. Jaeyan finally learned that she had traveled from over 600 years ago. Although they used humans as prisons, the Guardian's supervision of the prisoners was also a form of protecting humanity, so Jiyan didn't resent her alien father. In fact, their relationship had grown even closer. Yet a sudden event disrupted the peaceful life of the three of them. The man in the hospital, implanted with a prisoner, was a police officer. During a mission, he accidentally discovered collusion between a mole in the police station and drug traffickers. Wen Daoxi was instantly overcome with anger, letting the prisoner inside take control. The prisoner not only forced him to kill the two conspirators, but also turned him into a wanted man. When Wen Daoxi woke up, he was completely unaware of what had happened. The prisoner's awakening signal also drew a spaceship to the scene. Meanwhile, Thunder's database was hacked, and information on Wen Daoxi was accessed. The Guardian immediately sensed something was wrong, and decided to rush over, but Jian stubbornly refused to get out of the car. With time running out, the Guardian had no choice but to bring her along. The spaceship quickly landed on Earth and successfully located Wen Daoxi. At that moment, Wen Daoxi, having learned from the news that he was now a fugitive, prepared to flee. Unexpectedly, he spotted a strange red alien in the hallway. Sensing the danger, Wen Daoxi bolted immediately. Meanwhile, the Guardian arrived downstairs and happened to encounter the police sent to capture the prisoners. To stop them from interfering, he waved his hand, instantly disarming everyone. Inside the car, Jian packed all the guns and bullets into a bag. The Guardian leapt upward and jumped to the floor above. On the other side, Wen Daoxi had just entered the elevator when the red alien forcibly barged in. He quickly pulled out his pistol to fire, only to realize the bullets were useless.
설계자여, 이제 당신을 인간의 몸에서 탈옥시키겠다. 가드가 가진 에너지를 이용해서 준비됐나?
At the critical moment, the Guardian rushed in and engaged in a fierce fight with the alien. The two figures collided violently in the confined space, with the clash of metal echoing relentlessly. The alien swung its blade aggressively, but the Guardian dodged sideways and struck back, forcing the foe several steps back. Just as the Guardian spotted an opening and readied a fatal strike, the alien suddenly activated a weapon on its head, unleashing a blinding laser. The force was so immense that part of the building crumbled under the impact. Wen Daoxi, trapped in the elevator, was in grave danger, but fortunately the Guardian quickly shielded him. The Guardian then drew a laser sword and lunged at the alien, but the strike failed to have any effect, and he was knocked out of the elevator. The alien seized the opportunity to ambush the Guardian, even taking the divine sword capable of awakening prisoners from him. It then fired another laser, sending the Guardian plummeting down the shaft. Meanwhile, Wen Daoxi took advantage of their fight to escape the elevator and fled in a police car. Realizing this, the alien quickly piloted its spaceship in pursuit. At the same time, Thunder found the injured Guardian and discovered that the prisoner inside Wen Daoxi was called the Designer. He was the leader of all the prisoners, and crucially, the divine sword capable of releasing them had been stolen. The Guardian realized he had to act immediately to prevent the leader from being unleashed. When Daoxi noticed the spaceship tailing him and decisively drove into an underground parking garage, just as he thought he was temporarily safe, a voice suddenly echoed from the car's speaker.
탈옥할 준비됐나? 지구의 대기를 바꿔라. 모든 죄수를 탈옥시켜라. 아니, 죄수들을 구원할 수 있다. 이제 곧.
Before Wen Daoxi could comprehend what was happening, the massive spaceship forcefully squeezed in. His heart raced as he slammed the accelerator and reversed to escape, but the spaceship had no intention of letting him go, and soon they were locked in another chase through the streets. Seeing Wen Daoxi repeatedly evade capture, the alien fired a laser, destroying the vehicle ahead. Wen Daoxi had no time to dodge and collided directly with a nearby car. He was thrown into a bus. The spaceship finally stopped, and the alien drew the divine sword, ready to awaken the leader. The Guardian piloted his own ship and launched an attack, yet the alien seized the moment to throw the divine sword, striking Wen Daoxi with deadly accuracy. The Guardian realized the leader had awakened and prepared to reclaim the prisoner, but he was grabbed and thrown by the alien, who was willing to sacrifice himself to defeat the Guardian. The violent explosion severely damaged the Guardian's life systems, forcing Thunder to use his own energy to repair him. But Thunder could only restore 30%, leaving his own energy depleted. Seeing this, the Guardian told him to stop wasting energy and immediately investigate the designer's objective. Meanwhile, the designer inside the car fully awakened, leaving the human body and returning to his original form. Since he could survive only for 5 minutes in Earth's atmosphere, he couldn't stray far from his human host. As he turned and entered the spaceship, the true crisis unfolded. When Thunder pursued him into the spaceship, the scene before him left him stunned. The entire spaceship was filled with massive haba gas. If released, this gas would completely alter Earth's atmospheric composition. Humans wouldn't survive in such conditions, while the prisoners would remain unaffected. After hearing this, the Guardian hurriedly dragged himself into the spaceship, trying to stop the designer's actions. Though his life force was nearly depleted, the Guardian still managed to knock the designer out of the spaceship. He picked up the fallen divine sword, preparing to reseal the haba gas. He instructed Thunder to recapture the designer, pointing out that he was at his weakest at this moment. Unexpectedly, the designer tried to inhabit Jian's body, but Thunder immediately drove him away away. Although the designer returned to Wen Daoxi's body, fortunately Jian remained unharmed. After securing Jian, Thunder continued his search for the leader. He unexpectedly discovered 2 Haba devices left outside and decided to retrieve them first. But just as he recovered one, the designer detonated the other. The red gas spread instantly, and those who inhaled it collapsed and died. Unaware people panicked and fled. While Jian sat helplessly in the car, watching the chaos. By then, the Guardian had recovered the Haba inside the spaceship and piloted it back home. Unfortunately, the area covered by the Haba gas contained 2 prisoner hosts. Not only did they annihilate the human rescue teams, but they also became the designer's most powerful allies. Upon seeing the news, the Guardian immediately sensed trouble. They would surely come for the spaceship and release the Haba gas again. But with less than 10% of his life remaining, the Guardian was no match for the 3. To protect Jian, he decided to send her back to her original timeline. He stayed behind alone to face the 3 of them. But Jian, unwilling to leave because of her feelings for the Guardian, wanted to save him. As her determination to save him grew stronger, Thunder noticed the calculated chance of success gradually increasing. He immediately turned the car around, ready to advance alongside the Guardian. Meanwhile, the 3 finally located the spaceship, with the Guardian hidden inside, preparing to ambush. Yet the perceptive designer spotted him and knocked the Guardian to the ground with a single strike. The designer then prepared to release the Haba gas again. At that moment, Thunder returned, having calculated that the spaceship's weak point was at the red energy node. Thunder charged at the spaceship with the divine sword, but was intercepted by the enemy halfway. Facing overwhelming attacks, he could only keep dodging, and after escaping, he realized the divine sword was missing. Elsewhere, after setting the Haba's detonation timer, the designer threw the Guardian out of the spaceship. Fortunately, Jian dragged him back into the car in time and suggested they trap the designers within a time loop first. That way, when they returned, they could stop everything. At the critical moment, Jian spotted the divine sword on the ground and quickly picked it up. 3 of them launched an attack on her at the same time, but Thunder intercepted them all. With the divine sword in hand, the Guardian pretended to drive away, luring the leader to follow. Then the Guardian used the divine sword to open a portal, instantly transporting them over 600 years into the past. Some ancient hunters witnessed the scene and mistook it for an ominous sign. Meanwhile, the car, having tumbled multiple times, rushed toward the edge of a cliff. Inside the car, only the Guardian and Jian remained. Just as he intended to return to the present, he noticed that Thunder had been thrown out and was malfunctioning. Meanwhile, the designer behind them stood up again, forcing the Guardian to fight on with his battered body. In the end, the designer tore off one of his arms, and he collapsed. Though the situation seemed irretrievable, Thunder's reported chance of success kept climbing. At that moment, Jian in the car suddenly fired at the designer, piercing his body instantly. In fury, he flipped the car, but his deteriorating body meant he had to find a new host quickly, or he would perish soon. Jian, falling into the water, struggled to grab the divine sword, but ultimately lost consciousness from exhaustion. In a daze, she only remembered Thunder telling her to find him quickly and restart, so they could return to the present. It seemed that the increased chance of success Thunder mentioned wasn't immediate. They still had to stay here for a while. Over the next decade, the divine sword was retrieved from the water by a fisherman. At first, he only intended to sell the gemstones on the sword, but he unexpectedly discovered its unique healing powers. The legend of the divine sword quickly spread, attracting countless seekers. Among them was Wula, a low-level Taoist searching for the sword's reward. He learned from a local thug that the sword was now in the hands of the county magistrate. As he set out to find it, someone beat him to the location, one of the designer's 2 subordinates. When Wool arrived, he found a tentacle embedded in the wall. The bloodied magistrate, unwilling to let the man claim the sword, had thrown it away. However, the thug picked up the sword, and the man naturally wouldn't let him get away. But Wooly wasn't helpless. He stood in his way. Wooly thought his skills would easily subdue the man, only to be brutally pinned into the wall. It wasn't until nightfall that his cat familiar found and awakened him. This incident unexpectedly revealed a spaceship behind the wall, which turned out to be Thunder's true form. They didn't recognize the strange structure, but nearby they spotted a woman in red. They didn't pay much attention, as Woola's goal was simply to claim the reward. Meanwhile, a man and woman claiming to be immortals came to attend the magistrate's funeral. The woman immediately deduced that a monster had caused the magistrate's death, and as his friends, they could not stand by. Not to mention, the magistrate had once promised to give them the divine sword. They sought out the secret society rumored to harbor monsters. Intending to investigate, they unexpectedly learned that the divine sword was now in the hands of a local landlord. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, Wooly found the man's former residence and discovered a letter from the secret society. It confirmed that the man was acting under the orders of the society's leader to seize the divine sword. Before he could investigate the society, he heard that the thug had sold the sword to a landlord. Coincidentally, it was the landlord's daughter's wedding. Wooly immediately kidnapped the groom and assumed his identity to infiltrate the household. Just as he finished the ceremonial wine and prepared to search for the sword, his limbs went weak and he collapsed. Woolen instantly realized the wine had been tampered with and struggled back to his room. He saw the bride handling objects he had never seen before. The bride was actually Jian grown up, and the woman in red he had seen by the river was the same person. Meanwhile, the two immortals and members of the secret society also arrived. The immortals used flute music to hypnotize the landlord, forcing him to hand over the divine sword. Just as they were about to succeed, Jian suddenly intervened and snatched the sword. The two immortals immediately became invisible and tried to confront Jian. Unfortunately, they not only failed to take the divine sword, but the female immortal was instead shot and wounded by Jian. After obtaining the item, Jian intended to leave, only to be intercepted at the door by the secret society's leader. The divine sword she carried was also taken from her. When she regained consciousness, she found herself trapped within the society's barrier. It turned out the leader was another subordinate, who had traveled through time, and keeping Jian captive was meant to prevent her interference. However, to go back and release the Haba gas, they first needed to locate the designer. There had originally been 4 witnesses to the anomaly, but the magistrate was already dead. The two immortals were injured while vying for the sword, yet the designer had still not appeared. Now, the only clue left was the servant, but the servant had long gone missing, and no trace had been found to this day. So the two decided to first poison the troublesome Jian, and the two immortals then slowly tracked down the spaceship and the designer. At this moment, the person delivering food to Jian arrived. It was Wooly in disguise. It turned out that Wool, once immobilized, had been quietly rescued by his 2 cat familiars. Before leaving, he picked up the gun Jian had accidentally dropped. Upon learning that Jian and the divine sword had been taken into the secret society, Woola devised a way to infiltrate. Unfortunately, he couldn't break the society's barrier, so he quickly tossed the gun to Jian and hurried off. When he reached the room with the divine sword, he found the two immortals had already been poisoned. The antidote pill had accidentally fallen to the floor. At that moment, the immortals saw Woolo, who had already grabbed the divine sword. They immediately signaled that the food was poisoned and hoped he could help retrieve the antidote. Woola realized the meal he had given Jian might be poisoned too. Acting instantly, he grabbed an antidote pill and prepared to leave. Before he could exit the room, he was confronted by members of the secret society. Thinking only of Jian's safety, Wooly refused to be stopped. Perhaps driven solely by the thought of saving her, he struck without mercy. In just a few moves, he defeated all the society members and sprinted desperately toward Jian. He quickly fed the antidote to Jian, but she hadn't fully regained consciousness. The secret society's leader was drawn over by the commotion. The next second, a tentacle suddenly pierced Wooly's chest. Wool instantly lost consciousness and collapsed, while the divine sword was snatched again by the leader. He ordered Woola to be thrown into the sea, and Jian was placed in a coffin and buried. At this point, the two immortals finally got hold of the antidote, as there was only 1 pill left. In desperation, they shared the pill mouth to mouth, regaining their ability to act. They then reached the leader's room, and it was here that they learned his true scheme. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the two immortals decided to help Jian reclaim the divine sword. Elsewhere, Jian finally woke up after taking the antidote. Sensing something was wrong, she decisively shot the 2 henchmen who were burying bodies. Without a moment's hesitation, Jian set off to confront the leader and retrieve the sword. Once she located him, she fired directly at the leader. With the element of surprise, she successfully reclaimed the divine sword. But before she could relax, another alien quickly pursued her, and the leader's injuries were not severe. As Jian watched the 2 formidable foes downstairs, feeling at a loss, the 2 immortals suddenly appeared, trying to buy her time to escape. However, they had clearly underestimated their opponents and were quickly knocked to the ground. At this moment, the alien also spotted Jian and lunged at her, but Jian slid to evade the attack and countered with 2 shots. The opponent was equally skilled and quickly counterattacked, pinning Jian to the ground. Amid the chaos, the divine sword was taken again, and everything turned upside down. Elsewhere, the 2 immortals were also locked in a fierce battle with the leader. This time, they threw talismans, pinning the leader firmly in place. Then, one of them took out an ordinary-looking bronze mirror, while the other tossed a small jar toward it. As the jar passed through the mirror, it suddenly expanded, completely encasing the leader. To prevent accidents, they layered several immobilizing talismans, sealing the jar airtight. Meanwhile, the alien who had stolen the divine sword fully revealed its true form. Its tentacles instantly seized Jian, even forcing her to aim her gun at herself. At the critical moment, a large blade appeared out of nowhere, cutting through the tentacles. It turned out that Wool, who had been sunk into the sea, had broken free and returned, summoning a powerful weapon from the treasure fan. But the opponent wasn't easy to kill. A laser shot out, blasting Woola violently backward. It immediately retreated to its core form, trying to protect the divine sword. Seeing this, the immortal plunged his hand directly into the bronze mirror. Next, the hand suddenly enlarged, slamming down toward the enemy with astonishing force. Yet, the immortal was still flesh and blood, no match for future technology. At that moment, Wool suddenly charged with his sword, swinging directly at the alien. Unfortunately, the blow missed, and he was sent flying by a laser. The alien took the chance to pounce again, but Wooley suddenly slashed off its arm, pinning it to the wall. Meanwhile, Jian was doing her best to breach the alien's defenses and reclaim the divine sword. The immortal urgently reminded her to use the mirror on the ground. Jian quickly grabbed the mirror, hurled it at the core, and fired. The huge bullet instantly shattered the protective barrier. Just as Jian grabbed the divine sword, the leader inside the jar broke free, revealing his true form. Before everyone's stunned eyes, he swiftly pursued Jian, who held the sword. Fortunately, Jian had already submerged in the water, avoiding detection. Elsewhere, Wool was preparing to finish off the alien before going to support Jian. But in the next moment, the alien before him slowly dissipated, and its sword began to vanish.
내 안에 뭐가 있는데? 내 안에 뭐가 있는?
Faint, fragmented memories flashed through Woola's mind. It turned out that years ago, he had rescued Jian after she was swept ashore. He also helped her retrieve the bag containing a handgun from the water. But while they rested in the forest, they heard a strange sound. Young Wooly volunteered to investigate and unexpectedly encountered the designer, who had come searching for the host.
찾았다.
Recalling it all, Wooly immediately passed out, while the two immortals beside him also remembered the events of that day. It turned out that there were not 4 witnesses at the time, but 5. The last was the magistrate's youngest son, the very Woolai, lying on the ground. After returning, he fell gravely ill and lost all his memories. The magistrate, knowledgeable in the mystical arts, noticed his condition and had his servant hide him in the mountains. Countless mysteries intertwined, and the key to solving them might lie with Woola. But will events truly unfold as they expect? Only time will tell.